tell us about was that there was a train that passes right next to his house on occasion, and we're gonna get that on the halfway mark.
That is true, and we're live. So now here we go. Welcome to Masculine Geek number 87. We have special guest Kamran Pasha. He is an author, a novelist, filmmaker, adventurer, Sufi, which we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And you have an interesting background as far as your schooling is concerned. You got a JD from Cornell, an MBA from Dartmouth, and an MFA from UCLA Film School. Yeah. So you're a bit of a Renaissance man. So
still paying off some of that student debt. Unfortunately,
that's funny. Oh man, that's funny. All right, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I mean, further on from what I've just mentioned.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I'm delighted and honored. My background is, my name is Kamran Pasha. I was born in Pakistan, and I immigrated to the U.S. when I was 3 years old. Grew up in Brooklyn, New York. And I actually grew up in an ultra-Orthodox Jewish community, and sort of this one Muslim Pakistani guy living right in the middle of this community. It was very interesting. And actually, it birthed my fascination with religions in general. I went to college in the East Coast and went to Dartmouth, and I studied religion. That was my major there, and I studied world religions. And then I was a journalist for a few years. Then I went and started getting all these degrees. I got my law degree, got my MBA, and I was just bored out of my mind, to be honest. And I was always a writer at heart. I mean, I'd been a journalist, so I did that professionally. And so to pass the time in school, I started writing screenplays just to amuse myself. And then I graduated, I was working at a big, Wall Street kind of law firm kind of thing. And I had this screenplay, this horror script that I'd written, and I was like, well, let me see what I can do with this. So I didn't know anybody in Hollywood. I'm a random dude from Pakistan and Brooklyn, right? I just started sending that script out to agents without, I'll just send them a letter. Hi, my name's Cameron. Here's my script. And most people didn't respond, or they sent me a quick rejection letter. Thank you. We don't know who you are. We don't accept unsolicited submissions. But one gentleman ended up liking it. One agent, he represented me. I suddenly sold a couple of scripts after that to Paramount. I said, well, I can do this. And I moved to LA back in 2001, and I've been working professionally almost 20 years now as a screenwriter and a director. So yeah.
Okay. Cool. And we were just talking about lockdowns and stuff and where you're located, because we're all over the country right now. James and I are in New Jersey, and Rob's out in Utah, and you're out in California.
Yeah, I'm out in California. So Rob, I've been thinking of moving out of California, and so I've been looking at a few places, and I've been looking at Utah. Utah felt like it did okay in this. Like Salt Lake City didn't really crack down as hard as LA did, from what I understand.
Well, they did, but they didn't. We had a little bit of jogging from the joggers. Okay. Very minor as far as that goes. And as far as the pandemic goes, Utah is kind of statist in some ways.
Okay.
The city, the mayor of Salt Lake City cried and cried to the governor a few months back about numbers and whatnot, and the governor kind of capitulated. And so Salt Lake County and Summit County, where Park City is, are under a mask mandate. That technically by mandate we're supposed to wear masks anytime we're out and about, that type of thing. And so in that sense, it's like, well, Utah's definitely
like Santa Monica. I'm supposed to wear a mask when I go outside, but that's another conversation.
Right. So, yeah. And it is, I've not had Karen or her ilk shame me into wearing my mask, because I typically don't.
We were in the diner that one morning. We didn't wear our masks.
Yeah. So, and most of the time, people are, they're not going to say much, if anything. I know one of my coworkers had a Karen call our boss on him for not wearing a mask, because he had to have a little talk about why weren't you wearing the mask, that type of shit. But I'm in a position, I guess, that I kind of don't care. It's like, what are you going to do? Fire me? Go ahead.
Well, it's still, there are restrictions, but it's still better than what you're describing, what I've been going through. When the mandatory mask thing happened a couple of 3 months back here, it feels like we've been doing this forever in Santa Monica. I live right up opposite this beautiful park. It makes no sense for me to be walking in an empty park or, with a mask on. I'm not going to do it. Right. But the first day that rule went into effect, I went out with my mom. I'm taking care of my mom. We're walking down this beautiful park, people scattered everywhere, very few people wearing masks. A guy actually followed me and my mom for 2 blocks shouting at us.
Oh, no shit.
Oh, wow.
You're going to kill me, using various slurs. You're going to kill me. Go back to your country.
Oh
This
my
is
God.
This is liberal Santa Monica. He finally got his way to put in the "go back to your country, you people," while pretending to still be, because now he gets to do it while pretending to be liberal.
He probably was waiting, had that chambered and ready to go, just waiting for any excuse to say it. Yeah.
This has triggered a lot of people that have had a lot of stuff inside of them that they finally feel is empowered.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's definitely not as severe here as what you just described. Part of that, I believe, is that while the big cities like Salt Lake City, Provo, Ogden are definitely more liberal-minded, which is why when the joggers decided to have their fun here for a minute, it happened in downtown Salt Lake, not out in the suburbs like where I live.
Sure.
But the majority of the state by nature is more conservative. Part of that is the religion here, since and so we have certain trade-offs. We have some of the dumbest liquor laws in the union here. So if you were to come here, you would be trading certain things for other things.
Well, I don't drink. Whatever the laws are, doesn't affect me.
Well, there you go. Yeah, if you don't drink, then that's not going to apply to you.
Yeah.
And if you're more of an outdoors person versus a nightlife person, then Utah would probably have a lot more to offer you. Where if you're here to, you want to have a nightlife, Salt Lake rolls up the sidewalk at about 9 o'clock.
Yeah, guess what? Santa Monica do. There ain't nobody going clubbing anymore in Los Angeles.
Oh, man.
So you already lost what you had in that regard, is what you're saying.
Right. What's interesting is to watch, Los Angeles is the city of very attractive people who like to be looked at, and to see how, it's because everyone I tease, but I'm not exaggerating, that everyone is dressed like I Dream of Jeannie now, right? They all got the veil mask on, drip showing, and they look real sexy, and all you can't see is the veil.
Unbelievable. It's becoming, for women, it's become an accessory now. They match it up with stuff and their other clothing. I'm like, come on, stop.
Yeah. I mean, I was born in Pakistan, so I'm used to like the niqab, but even in the Muslim world, it ain't that common. I'm like, everyone's wearing a niqab now, man.
It followed me home.
Yeah, right. Oh man, that's too funny. Now we were just talking about how when things opened up, like here in New Jersey, September 1st was the gyms were opening up, and then our restaurants followed closely thereafter, maybe 30-40% capacity inside. How is that for you?
The gyms we had this roller coaster situation where they allowed the gyms to open with various rules. You had to wear a mask in the gym, right? For a while we had to wear gloves in the gym and all that.
What?
Yeah, we actually. I mean, the rules, it kept changing every few days. You would get a new rule, right? And so it was just like, all right. For a couple of weeks, I just went, and and you were allowed to take off the mask when you were working out, right? You were allowed that. For a couple of weeks, I just went, and you were. Something just turned on here, so I heard myself repeating. But so I. And then we got this thing, you got to wear the masks all the time, even when you're working out. I'm like, that doesn't sound like a good respiratory idea when I'm lifting weights, but all right, whatever. And then it came on, now you got to wear gloves. So every week it was a new restriction. And then after just 1 month of that, LA said we're shutting down the gyms. And they were shut down for another 2 months. And just literally 2 weeks ago, they were able to allow gyms that could operate outdoors. So my gym happened to create a setup on top of a skyscraper, basically in a roof. And everyone's going to Central City, right, in this mall, and I'm up on the roof working out again. So that's good.
Nice.
A giant conspiracy to get better ventilation.
Doesn't
it feel nice working on top of a sky?
That's the funny thing is, I've always been into what people call conspiracy theories because working almost 20 years in Hollywood, I've seen that not everything is what it appears to be.
I was going to say, you've probably seen some messed up stuff. I mean,
there's stuff I can talk about on camera, and there's stuff that I probably cannot talk about on camera. But I mean, I'd always had a knowledge that things weren't what they appear to be. Now I think a lot of people are realizing maybe, man, the whole world, maybe things aren't what they appear to be. So
no, especially the last 4 years.
Yeah,
absolutely. We were just talking about that off right before we went live. Is like I grew up in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. Like the shift where we put mental illness on a pedestal and gave these people, this sort of the squeaky wheel that we're giving them the grease. It's like, when did that happen? And you had a theory on that.
My belief is this, it really started in the last 4 years of President Obama. The first 4 years, as I've said, and I'm going to be political on the show, and
that's fine.
I'll share my point of view. Not everyone in the audience will agree, but that's fine. The first 4 years, in my opinion, were just Obama continuing the Bush legacy, right? Keep bombing the Middle East, keep giving Goldman Sachs money, right? And so that was just a continuation of those 8 years. And then when he got reelected, suddenly you noticed that there was a shift into discussing very progressive social policies, right? And they became more and more sort of really on the left. And I knew that there was going to be a backlash when I think near the final years of Obama, he started pushing for transgender bathrooms for children, in elementary schools and junior high schools. And I said, I don't think America is ready for that. And I'm not sure this is going to help the transgender cause. And I said, what's going to happen is there's going to be a cultural reaction to that. So I said, someone like what would happen to President Trump, but someone like that is coming who's going to be a voice for sort of, let's slow this down or reverse this. And that's where we are now. We've seen Hollywood, after Trump won, Hollywood really doubled down on taking things to a very left place, more so than people actually practice in their lives here, but they're putting the messaging out. And so now we have a culture war.
Blowback doesn't just apply to foreign policy, I suppose.
Oh, as I said, blowback is human nature, right?
Yeah.
When you push people too far, they fight back.
Yeah, and we're seeing that now. Mm-hmm. It's just insane. You don't even want to look at social media anymore. Afraid of seeing.
I've actually the sad thing is, I'm very vocal. Anyone who follows me on Twitter knows that I'm very vocal against the lockdown. I don't support it. I'm vocal against masks, and I have been for many months. And that has lost me friends. There's people that I've known for years that will no longer speak with me, that have blocked me, and I mean, it's unfortunate. But I'm also believe this moment in history, you got to follow what you believe to be true. And I really believe my point of view is true. And we're in a very dangerous place in human history right now that we got to stand up to.
Absolutely. And that's for good or for ill, that's what needs to be done. So, yeah. I don't want to switch gears just slightly because I did pick up on Kindle, and I'll most likely wind up with the hardback or the physical copy as well. Your Shadow of the Swords.
Ah, yes.
Well, I'm going to delve into that.
Here, let me show you.
Cool.
Here, these are my novels. This is Shadow of the Swords. It's my novel in the Crusades.
Oh, cool! I'm looking. Nice. I'm looking forward to this. Yeah.
It's the background of that is that I wrote a screenplay of this, what would become this novel, right after September 11, 2001. I wrote it because being a Muslim guy, just arrived in Hollywood. These horrific events happen. My religion don't look that good right now. I said, look, let me write a screenplay because Hollywood has done Crusades movies. I mean, a bunch of them, right? And many of them are good, but they're always told from the European perspective, understandably, right? So I said, let me tell the story from the other side. Let me tell it from Saladin, the Muslim king's point of view, right? Because even the Crusaders viewed him as an honorable adversary. And if you saw Ridley Scott's movie, Kingdom of Heaven, he's not really the villain in that movie, even though he's the adversary. He's a decent guy. And so I said, let me show it from Saladin's point of view, what the Crusade was like. And that wrote as a screenplay. That actually launched my career, got me my first jobs in television as a professional writer. But people were too afraid to actually make that script because telling the script from a Muslim point of view and the Muslims and Jews are allies against the European Crusaders wasn't a story that people in Hollywood felt comfortable with at the time. And so I got a lot of people. I mean, I actually got very far. I had major production companies, top directors bring it into the studio, said, this is an important story right now after September 11th. Iraq War hadn't even happened yet, but it was coming. But this is a story we got to tell. And the studios were like, no, this is not going to happen. But so then I novelized it, and I spent 4 years trying to get a publisher. And finally in 2007, I sold it to Simon & Schuster. So so that's the got.
Okay. That's fantastic. And the second book, your previous book, was from what, 2009, I think?
Yeah. The funny thing is this: I got a 2-book deal from selling that novelization of the Crusade script, Shadow of the Swords, and then they said, we want to give you a 2-book deal. You have another idea? And I said, I'll have this idea of writing a book about the birth of Islam from the point of view of Prophet Muhammad's wife, Aisha, who's a very controversial figure, especially in the West. She's like, she was very young when she married him. People have attacked Muhammad about this. And I said, well, she's also this amazing figure who shatters every stereotype you got of Muslim women because she was a scholar, a political leader, and a military leader. She was a general who led armies. And I said, this is an interesting woman. So I pitched that idea, and they're like, yeah, you know what? we'll put that out first. I was like, yeah, but I haven't written it. Here's your triple deal.
No pressure.
So I cranked out this other novel, which is the first one that was published, called Mother of the Believers. So, it's a novel from her point of view, sort of Aisha on her deathbed, looking back, at her life, and so that came out. That got a lot of interesting attention. And then after that, The Shadow of the Swords came out. And so, yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you have a third novel in progress, or is that it for now?
I finished my third novel, handed it into my agent. The world is a little crazy right now, so it's hard to. We'll see what happens next. Whether hopefully it will get published, but there's the publishing industry has been hit by all of this as well. And so the third novel is actually a retelling of a biblical tale, the tale of Esther from the Old Testament.
Okay.
About a Jewish girl in ancient Iran, ancient Persia, who becomes the Queen of Persia, and she hides the fact that she's Jewish in order to protect her people. There's about to be a major pogrom done by sort of this anti-Semitic minister, and she's trying to outsmart him and get the king to stop this essential pogrom that's going to wipe out the Jews of ancient Persia. And so the book is finished. We'll see what happens next with it. It's called The Queen of Persia. I hope it's published in the near future, but the manuscript is finished, and I'm very proud of it. Again, here's an interesting thing: Muslim guy telling a Jewish story from the Bible, right? And my thing is, one of the nicest comments I've gotten from people who've read my Crusades book is that you would think that he would just be a Muslim guy harping on how bad the Crusaders are. And there's some villainous Crusaders, right? But there's also some really devout Christians who are featured in the novel who are Saladin's adversaries, and they have their point of view. And my Christian friend said, you actually showed a lot of respect for Christianity. I said, yeah, because I don't associate the violence of the Crusades with Christ. Those are two things that are separate.
Exactly,
And I don't think Christians do as well, at least most good-hearted Christians, and so I wanted to present that accurately.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it.
Yeah, I think you'll like it. It'll be interesting.
Absolutely. And I just lost the question I had in my head, so let's flip over to. I wanted to ask you about your script writing career too. I'm going on your website, and it mentions that you were working on the remake of Bionic Woman and Sleeper Cell.
Yeah. Well, Sleeper Cell was my very big break. I'd worked on a few. I worked on like the Twilight Zone remake on UPN that not a lot of people saw. That is my first break into television. But my real big break that got me attention was this show called Sleeper Cell on Showtime Networks. That was 2005, 2006. And it was a show that was very unique because it was a Muslim FBI agent who's infiltrating Al-Qaeda. There's a terrorist cell in the U.S. that wants to set off another September 11th. And he's actually infiltrating it because, he's Muslim and they believe he's one of them, and he gets in there and he stops them. And the show, got a lot of attention. We got a bunch of Emmy nominations, Golden Globe nominations, because it was the first time you ever had a Muslim hero. And it was the first time we really had an African-American, hero like that, because there's an African-American Muslim played by Michael Ealy. And, and in some ways it was a counterpoint to the narrative of shows like 24, where you had the cartoonish villains blowing up stuff, Jack Bauer stopping them every week. And so it brought a lot of attention to maybe there's a more accurate narrative about what's really happening, but it also caused a lot of resistance. The thing is, in Hollywood, Muslims have been villainous since, you talk about growing up in the 70s, 80s, like myself. The very first portrayal of Muslims I ever saw was a villainous Muslim guy on the original Bionic Woman. I would work on the later, but like with Lindsay Wagner, when I was a 5-year-old immigrant from Pakistan, I'm watching the Bionic Woman, and there's this episode where she takes it Geek or whatever. I'm like, hey, wait a minute.
Nope.
Is that my? And so, and the portrayal didn't get any better as the 80s went on. And one could say that was just Hollywood ignorance, or they didn't really have anybody from that culture presenting more complex versions of it. One could make that claim. And then Sleeper Cell came out and said, well, maybe the story of the war on terror isn't good Westerners versus evil Muslims. Maybe it's a lot more complex than that. And there's a lot of good Muslims fighting this war on our side. And so the interesting thing with Hollywood is that they actually reacted very poorly to it in many ways. There was a backlash to it inside of Hollywood because the reality is that a lot of people inside the industry, for all their talk of being liberal and multicultural, they don't really like Islam. Islam is seen as a very threatening religion for two reasons in Hollywood. One is that it is seen as a very conservative religion. So, it is seen as a religion, and I would dispute this characterization, but it is seen as a religion that is homophobic. It's seen as a religion that's misogynistic, right? That treats women bad. And that's how it's portrayed. And so for liberal Hollywood, you don't really want to support those things if that's what. And then there's a second issue, which is a very emotional issue, which is the Middle Eastern politics. A lot of people in Hollywood have a lot of identification with Israel in the Arab-Israeli conflict, right? And they don't really want to show the other side of that conflict as good guys because they fear that that's going to humanize the enemy, right? And this is people very, very left on everything, but when it comes to like Israel-Palestine, they're like, Netanyahu's our guy, right? And so that's on that point of view, when I started doing this sort of sophisticated Muslim characters that were sympathetic and accurate, a lot of people always said, yeah, we don't actually want that portrayal. And then it actually hurt my career. It hurt my career for years after that. Right after Obama was elected, there was a bunch of these shows that came on with like the Muslim villain theme started all over again, right? You saw all those shows, Homeland, whatever, they all came on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they went right back to the old trope, but this time they did it knowingly. And none of them would have, everyone knew who I was. I was a prominent, at that point, writer, producer in town, got, Emmy nominations, whatever. And people would not even interview me for those shows. They didn't want me to come in because they just didn't want anyone challenging the narrative. And the funny thing is this, so for 8 years during Obama, my career took a major hit. Like the one thing that I got known for was the one thing nobody wanted from me anymore, right? They didn't want my point of view on the Middle East or the Islamic world or whatever. They was threatened by it. Then the moment, and they thought, we got Obama, so we got our nice, liberal guy. We don't need to cater to these Muslims anymore. Done. We're done, right? We're done. We use them for identity politics and we're done with them now. We don't really like their religion anyway. So then the day Trump was elected, I walked in the next day to the office. I was working a TV show on Warner Brothers on CW at the time, and everyone in the office was crying with actual tears. People were crying. Right?
They were crying because Trump won.
And people were crying. Oh my
God!
Tears. There was like hug sessions, all that stuff, and I sort of stayed quiet, and I thought, my career's coming back.
Absolutely.
Guys. And literally that day, my phone started ringing off the hook. I have 3 projects right now, screenplays that I wrote, television pilots that I wrote during the Obama era that are set in the Muslim world. One's like on the Arabian Nights, one set during the Ottoman Empire. All these were all projects I didn't want anyone to look at. Because you're like, oh, we don't care about these Muslim stories. Nobody wants them. The day after Trump wins, I'm getting, hey,
oh my God.
That's exactly what happened. I've got 3 projects.
It was that shameless.
Wow. Opportunistic. Oh my God.
And I had already been through a decade of this crap, so I knew what it was. And I said, yeah, sure. You want to buy my script? Buy it. I know exactly what your agenda is. I'm going to use it for my own advantage.
yeah. At that point, seriously. And, you get to tell your side. You get to tell some truth. So there you go.
So,
did they have any reaction?
I'm screwed in November. It was like,
did they have any moment where they were like, oh, well, we know that we've been doing this for about a decade, but we just wanted to say that we're now switching? Or was it like nothing ever happened?
There's no self-awareness. There's no self-awareness. It was the same time. Remember, it's like, people like Ilhan Omar were being held up. And let me say this, I don't know how many Muslims you've had on the show before, but Ms. Omar is not exactly popular amongst a lot of American Muslims. We're presented as she represents the American Muslim voice. And she's pretty left of most of us. There are definitely people that like her. I gave her the benefit of the doubt for a while, and then if I said, she doesn't represent my ideas about politics or about religion, so I'm kind of done. Bye. But that was that period where all these Muslim politicians that were very left were being held up as representative, and it was all identity politics. It wasn't about the values people had, because to be very honest, the values most Muslims have are relatively conservative. I don't think they're homophobic, misogynistic, but they're certainly more conservative than I think where a lot of liberal Christians and Jews are right now. It's just the truth.
Yeah. So you got 3 projects you're working on right now.
Yeah.
Wow. And how much time does it take up? Like, what's a normal day in the life of Kamran?
The normal day of the life before the lockdown and after is actually pretty much the same. I just sit around waiting all day and typing. I mean, now it's slowed down in the sense that all the industry's been hit really badly by this. And by God's grace, those projects I'm talking about had momentum before, all this horrible stuff happened. And so
there was some buildup. Yeah.
And they're still moving forward. And I've sold one of them to a major studio, and I've just negotiated a deal with a director for another project. So they're moving at their own pace. And I'm hoping by the end of this year, by early next year, we can actually get them in front of networks and go, okay, here's something that you might want to do. So, I mean, that most of my life right now is just writing and praying this thing ends and we can get back to normal.
Yeah, hey, seriously, whatever that means now. I mean, a lot of people are. I don't see. I've seen it run through the chat too, and just from the tone around here, it doesn't seem like the masks are going away anytime soon.
No, I mean, this is a cultural shift. I mean, the same way you go to Asia, before all this, you see masks very commonly, right? I worked in Beijing for a while. I developed a TV show there for them, and worked in China, which was a very interesting experience back in 2014. And and so, and even then, I mean, masks were a common cultural thing, and you actually needed it because, you know, the moment I got off the plane in Beijing, the moment I was like, I can't breathe. I mean, the pollution is the most horrific pollution I've ever experienced. Like the sky was
that bad? Wow.
It was black.
Because we don't hear any of that.
I mean, this was in 2014, and I'm sure it's worse now. But back then, I mean, the sky. I was there for 6 weeks developing this project with Chinese writers, and the sky was black almost the entire time. I mean, black as in like, you know, it was like when we had the wildfires. It was worse than that. Like you were looking out, and the sky's there's no clouds. It's just this haze of darkness, right? That's what it was.
Wow.
The only time I saw blue skies in Beijing was 1 week. Near the end of my time there, Obama came for a World Economic Conference, and the government ordered all of the factories to shut down a week before. And so by the time he arrived, one day I woke up and I couldn't believe it. I saw the sun. I could see blue skies. For 1 week, they created the illusion of a beautiful Beijing with blue skies for Obama.
Wow.
The moment Obama left, next day,
back in production.
So
they don't even care. It's just like in your face. Like, yeah, we're polluting. We don't care.
I mean, look, the restrictions that I was shocked by, you know, the people in Beijing, again, I'm sure it's worse in many ways now, but in 2014, the people, you know, you were given a pass as to which day you were allowed to drive, right? And so my coworkers who had to pick me up from the hotel, one day they would pick me up in their car, the next day they would come in a cab, right? Because they were not allowed to drive on that day. They didn't have the permit for that day. It was every other day. We're heading for that in America too. I mean, you saw what happened in, you know, the governor of California said, we're gonna get gas powered cars are out because I say so, right? Electric cars, even though the electric grid doesn't work, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that was the weirdest thing. They were shutting the power grid down for a bit. Yeah.
I mean, well, I mean, it's still an unstable power grid, and I think in Northern California in particular, there's been a lot of power outages. I mean, I said I was born in Pakistan. I mean, this is stuff you hear about in third world countries, brownouts and blackouts. I mean, it's happening in California. And while this is happening, you're talking about we're all going to have electric cars. Maybe you should solve this problem first.
Seriously.
But we're moving towards a Chinese model where the state tells us everything. Like what you can drive, what you can wear. We're moving towards it. I mean, it's not a shock that all this started in China. And having worked there, I'm not an anti-Chinese bigot. I love Chinese culture. I love pre-communist Chinese culture. I studied it. I studied Taoism. I studied Chinese history. When I went there, I said, man, this post-communist Maoist culture kind of is really terrible. It's really,
yeah, it is.
This ain't China. This is something else. It's really bad.
Yeah. Oh, man. So, excuse me. I want to ask you another question regarding, because what you've been writing so far and the scripts that you're talking about, you have sort of a historical and religious bent. Now, is that something that's always been of an interest to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been fascinated by history because I think what people have actually done is crazier than anything you can make up, right? You can, when I'm researching all these novels I've written, I was like, this actually happened?
Yeah.
That's almost impossible, and yet it did. And so that always fascinates me. My poor agents are always frustrated because I'm always giving these screenplays set in like 15th century Iran or whatever. That, man. We need like a story. We need like a murder mystery in 2020, right? We need
right.
What does this thing do to the spear and a scimitar thing? I'm like, that's what I love. But I do like horror movies too. I love horror movies.
Okay, cool. Now, geek wise, what's your history been in the geek realm with books, things like role playing games, computer games? Were you into anything like that as a kid growing up, or was it?
Well, I mean, I'm known now a little bit in the Twitter, YouTube world as sort of an outspoken, proponent of ancient Star Wars before Disney, right? And so yeah. I mean, I'm very passionate about that. I don't like the direction Disney took Star Wars in, and I've been very vocal about that, to the point that people have said to me, that's probably not good for your career. I'm like, I already work with I don't think I'm going to be working there again, so I'm just going to say what I gotta say, right? And so, but yeah, so now I'm very passionate about the science fiction stories, very passionate about Star Wars in particular. I actually worked for Disney on the Tron animated series, Tron Uprising. I was the head writer for that, and
cool.
I got fired from that job because I spoke truth to power, which is not what you do at Disney. I went to the people. I said, we're having this problem here. We got to fix it. And these are the people in the system that are creating this problem. So why don't you all talk to them? They're like, oh, you want us to talk to powerful people and make them change their behavior? You're fired.
Wow. What a shocker though.
Yeah, but I learned, and so yeah, and yeah, when I was in junior high school and high school, I was a big AD&D fan. So I would go into I'd bring my dice into whenever we had like free periods, we'd all be getting together in the whatever cafeteria and playing whatever. I was a terrible dungeon master.
You're more the player.
Yeah, I was more the player, and at least at that time, But I mean, and I remained very passionate about science fiction, and Alex, I worked on the Twilight Zone, I worked on Nikita, which was a spy show, but it actually had a lot of science fiction elements to it. And,
cool.
So I mean, it's something I care about very much, and it's actually the geeks that are going to save the world, man. I'm telling you, because they're used to being the weirdos and the outskirts of society that speak the truth. That's it. And and now people need somebody like that who says maybe everything around us isn't working.
Exactly. Other viewpoints that are fresh and actually, like you said, truth to power.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tell me they hit you up for the production of Dune.
I went in for an interview for the TV series. I ultimately didn't get the job, which I'm always hoping, guys, maybe you'll give me a job in second season, which has happened before. Like, I'm the guy that they don't like the first time, and then they take the second time. It's just the way it works. But
something goes wrong, and they're like, bring this man back in.
I'm usually not what they want. I'm usually what they want, and then the system goes, he doesn't fit XYZ box, right? And then eventually realize the person they hired that fit XYZ box didn't fulfill what they needed. And so it's happened to me multiple times where I've lost. I mean, you would think I'm a brown Muslim guy. You would think that diversity would be working for me, and it ain't. I'm the last guy they want, right? And there's a project, right? There's a science fiction project right now. I'll be careful how much I reveal about it because I still want to get the job, right? There's a science fiction project right now that's set up at Netflix. That's about an African American colony on the moon, right? And I really want this job because it's an incredible job to create this series. And I did literally there's 3 novels that it's based on. Each is 1,000 pages long. When I got the interview set, they said to me, this was like just a few weeks ago. They said, just if you can get through the first book or if halfway through, well, that's enough to start talking. I read all 3 books in one week. I prepped a full detailed pilot, of how we do the pilot, and then 2 seasons of how you do the episodes, right? And I walked in, and they were like, "Oh my God, nobody's prepped like this," and they were blown away, and very much were passionate. But I've been waiting to hear, and so far I've been hearing, they love you, but it's a show about African Americans, and so they gotta see if they can find an African American writer first. And I understand that. I wish them well. I hope ultimately I get the job, and I will definitely have African Americans on my staff in very powerful positions. But I think I can write the show, and that's shocking for people in Hollywood. You, as a Pakistan man, think you can write a show about Black people? I said, yeah, maybe I can. I wrote a novel about 7th century Arabia. I wasn't there. I wrote a novel about the Crusades. I wasn't a 12th century French warrior. From their point of view.
Certainly, we could try this at least once.
So, but they're going through the process, which has been in my career, which is they'll go to everybody that fits the box they need first, and then if that doesn't work out, here we go. That's how.
Oh man, I can only imagine. Now, are you on some kind of speed dial for like script writing, or like if they need something? How does that work for you?
I mean, there are people that are literally on speed dials. It's all about your network, right? I mean, if you're in a certain club of this town, you're the first person they turn to, right? I am not in that club. And so, I'm not in that club. And for the reasons I've just described, I'm just not the guy they want for a lot of things. Even though like, oh, you're perfect for this, but it just doesn't fit the suit we got to wear, right? And so but like I said, I've had a career for 19 years. I'm doing well, thank God. I'm still here, and I've advanced. I mean, I was worked on Roswell, New Mexico. I was the number 2 level on that show, co-executive producer, and so I'm doing well in my career despite all the obstacles. But I still haven't gotten to the place where people are like, get Kamran on the phone. And we got to get there. And it is, and I would like to believe it isn't about my talent. It literally is getting into the central group of people that are a club. And, I've never been in that club. And they don't, I came close to that club when I was getting Emmy nominations for Sleeper Cell. And I got a little too close to the club. I will tell you this one story without revealing the gentleman. The major showrunner in this town who developed one of the shows with a lot of Muslim villains that we talked about in this last decade during Obama. And he got a lot of bad press for it. So a friend of mine was a producer working with him and said, he was grumbling, we're getting so much press. Everyone's calling us Islamophobic. We're getting this bad press, whatever. And he's like, well, why don't you just hire Kamran? He'll come on your show. He worked on that show, Sleeper Cell, did a good job for them, made it very accurate. And he said to my friend, and my friend was so shocked, he called me and said, I got to talk to you about this, and took me out to lunch and told me. He said to my friend, I'm never going to hire Kamran. He's not going to go along with our narrative. Yeah.
Wow.
Because he had a specific political narrative about the Middle East that he wanted to tell, which was a very neoconservative narrative, which is, again, Hollywood liberal, votes for Hillary Clinton, but is a neoconservative when it comes to that area. And I would question some of those choices on the storytelling because it's not accurate. And he said, I will never hire that guy. I know that guy's good, but he's not going to serve my agenda. And so don't again. And this is a very powerful person who's been very friendly to my face, right? And is taking me out for lunch and coffee, but will never hire me for a job. So I'm at that place where the people in that little club who's on the speed dial all know who I am. And they're like, this guy won't go away, damn it. He's like this annoying fly that just keeps coming back.
Oh, man. So that's it. Someone made a comment. I think it was Mictobus. I'll throw it up on the screen here. From what we have been learning these past few years, it may not be a bad thing to be excluded from the club. And I would agree with that.
Well, I'll give you a direct example of that. I worked on a show that was wonderful, and you're never going to get to see it because of the club and the dark side of the club. I worked on a show for Showtime Networks with Oliver Stone. I worked with the great director Oliver Stone, one of the highlights of my career. And it was a show about Guantanamo Bay. He wanted to do a drama about the prisoners. There's still prisoners in Guantanamo Bay 20 years later. Yeah. People forgot about it. I was like, there's dudes there that like haven't had a trial in 20 years. They're just there, right?
They're just wasting away. Yeah.
And some of those dudes might not actually be the guy you think they are. You might want to give them a trial, right? So he cares about that. Oliver cares about that issue a lot. And we developed a TV series. I was hired to come on to this project he had at Showtime, and Showtime greenlit the show. We were writing the scripts, basically dramatizing one of the legal trials to remind people this is actually happening. And it was greenlit because it's Oliver Stone, and who else was involved? Harvey Weinstein.
Wow.
Harvey Weinstein, it was his company, the Weinstein Company, that brought it into Showtime, and with Oliver Stone and Weinstein together, boom, obvious sale, right, at the time. And then I was there. It was fall of, I guess it was 2017 or so, when Mr. Weinstein had his public downfall, right? And so that happened while we were working the show. And when the news first came out of accusations of rape and all this against Harvey, I'd never met the man. He was one of the people that's listed on the masthead as one of the executive producers, but he's got like 20 shows and movies, right? So you never see him. And suddenly we're all like, we see the news reports come out. We're all looking at each other like, it's time to get the resumes out. This show ain't going, right? And the show didn't go. The show didn't go. The club is beginning to implode, right? And Mr. Weinstein is the beginning of that. So that comment is correct.
Wow.
That's fascinating because Weinstein is just the name on the brought to you by this guy with money, brought to you by this guy with money. And even that mention of him was going to be so onerous that they decided to just cut the whole thing.
And it's I have to be careful what I say about this topic. So what I'll say is this. I don't have any doubt that Mr. Weinstein did some very, very terrible things. In fact, we had all heard that for years. It wasn't like if it was an open secret. It's just open, right? And the whole system facilitated that. Very famous people facilitated his activities. I will not mention, but a very, very, very famous movie star who you all know, top-level Oscar-winning movie star, was his madam. She was procuring girls for him that she would mentor and send to him, right? And so that system is set up for that. And what happened is Mr. Weinstein, Harvey, made some enemies. We all make enemies. He made a lot of them. And in the last couple of years, he had not made a lot of money. He had a string of failures. And so everyone said, this is our moment to take him down. And so it wasn't just that, people knew about his activities for 20 years.
And they just ignored it. Yeah.
But when the moment came, the knives came out when they had their moment, right? What happened was, then it created this steamrolling effect where everyone starts coming out about stories about everybody. And then the whole town became frightened because all the powerful people in this town have these skeletons in their closet, right? Me Too was going to tear the whole town apart.
All these rocks are being overturned. Yeah.
So the system went into overdrive to make it go away. You don't hear about Me Too anymore. And I said that. This is what I said when it happened. I said in 2016, business as usual. 2017 is going to be the Me Too movement. 2018 is going to be Hollywood covering up the Me Too movement. And 2019 will be business back to usual. That's exactly what happened. Right?
Yep. Yeah, as far as movies are concerned, I don't even know what's coming out. If anything's scheduled for the fall, I haven't even looked.
I was so excited. First of all, I'm grateful. I got to see Tenet in the theater because I went to I drove down to Orange County where the theaters have been open, and Tenet was playing there, and I was so delighted to sit, in a theater again, have popcorn and for 2.5 hours and just watch a movie with like other people. Wasn't a lot of people, but there was people. It's a very spiritual experience movie. I think it goes back to when you're sitting in front of a campfire, hearing from the shaman, right? It's very primordial. Yeah. And Tenet is a very interesting movie. It's like a lot of his movies where it's really fun and you don't actually know what's going on. And I think I'm a relatively smart guy and I'm a screenwriter professionally. I couldn't tell you what was happening in that movie. I think I understand time travel, and I don't think I understand that movie. And yet I was so grateful to see it in the theater. I was so happy.
Yeah, you probably would have watched anything at that point just to be out and about and like, oh, the movie theaters are open.
Yeah, and there's great stuff coming out that looks like it's all going to be, Wonder Woman, which I was a huge fan of the first movie. The sequel's been pushed. There's talk that James Bond's not going to make it this year. This is the thing. And I'm going to say some stuff that's controversial about the lockdown.
Oh, that's fine. Please do.
Everyone in Hollywood has been on board. We got to lock down. We got to stay inside forever. We can't ever go back to work. We got to wear masks. We can't go to theaters. And then they're like, oh, we're all losing money, right? Now, industry now, right? We can't have production. So they're trapped. People in Hollywood are trapped by repeating this mantra of we can never go back to business without this, mythical vaccine that will come someday, right? And at the same time, the whole industry is collapsing, and theaters are collapsing, and production is collapsing. And so now you started watching the trades, Deadline and Variety and those trade newspapers of the industry, they're essentially voice pieces for the industry, started putting out op-eds in the last a couple of weeks saying that maybe it's time for us to get over the COVID fears and start letting theaters open again. And the backlash from within sort of the average brainwashed Hollywood person was like, you can't say this. You can't end this mantra. They're trapped in it. And
they're stuck in a loop.
They're stuck in a loop, and it's going to destroy the industry, and everyone knows it. But everyone is afraid to do what I'm doing, which is saying, man, this is just stupid. This is just stupid. Let's go back to normal. Seriously. Death is part of life. Flu happens. Tuberculosis kills 1.5 million people a year. It's still out there, right? Yep. If you were afraid, why aren't you wearing a mask last year to protect yourself from tuberculosis? It's a real thing, right? And but nobody wants to hear that right now.
No, it's the same thing with the swine flu. That was actually a serious one, but nobody gave a shit. They didn't care. Yep. Nope, no masks, nothing. No, I said from the beginning this is all politically motivated. Of course, and a lot of people were just like, oh, I lost friends. People just, I don't care. This is
something worth losing friends over. It's the truth at some point.
Oh, man. Absolutely. Yeah.
So this whole thing's gonna go away the day after the election. It'll be one of those. Oh well, the Kung flu was killed by the cold temperatures that happened in.
September and October killed it all out.
Winter.
Yeah. I hope you're right. I've heard a lot of people say that, particularly my friends on the right are very confident of that. The problem is that, and I want that to be true because I want this over, right? But the problem is because it is associated with Mr. Trump, there's two elements to this, right? So if Trump wins again, which I think he will, I think he'll win in a landslide personally, and that's a very unpopular opinion in Hollywood. But if Trump wins again, then you've got all these people that have invested like their entire identity as the virus is the lockdown is how you fight Trump, right? Like I said, my friend I was talking before we came on, friend of mine, I listed all the scientific problems with masks and the problems with the current lockdown, whatever, and he had no response to the data. He finally just went, doesn't it annoy you that it doesn't even concern you that you're supporting Trump? I said, this isn't about Trump. but for him it is. And so for him to accept, especially if Trump comes back, he's like, for him to accept going back to normal would mean that Trump was right. I mean, in his mind, it's not about that. That's my concern. And the second concern I have is, let's say Trump doesn't win. Let's say Biden wins. These guys got a taste of power, right? Why would they let that power go? It's like the Communist Party. Once you got it, now you've got the government. Now you've got Biden's in charge, and all these Democratic governors who have been putting the worst lockdowns: Pennsylvania, California, New York, all these places, right?
Michigan, they're going to want to cling to that power. Absolutely.
Yeah, they won't want to give that up. And now they feel like they have. Now they can say we've got the country on our side because we put Biden there. I want that to be true, that this ends after the election. I don't know that it is, and that's what's horrifying. That's why we have to keep fighting it.
Yeah. That's the thing, is like nobody's cracking down on, for instance, Governor Murphy or Governor Cuomo. Is these people, these two gentlemen specifically, send COVID patients to
nursing homes,
long-term care facilities, which are not really. I mean, I have friends who work in some of these facilities. I have friends who work at one works at a psychiatric hospital. These are not terribly well staffed to deal with the current number of patients who are already either ill, ailing, crazy. They do not have the resources, time, or smarts to hire and implement a entirely secondary team to deal with. I mean, to deal with a COVID patient. Like when they have something that's too big for them to begin with, they call Virtua, for instance, right? Everybody said from the very beginning the COVID patient should be going over to Virtua, because this is already way outside our league. We don't even know enough about this virus yet. We don't know if this is going to infect the staff, and now it is infecting the staff based on what these people have done. I'm not going to advocate for like the French Revolution style solution to this problem in regards to Murphy and Cuomo, but these people need to be held to account.
Social unrest is coming. We've already had social unrest on the left, this summer, and yes, it is being fueled by politicians and fueled by shady people fueling all these groups, right? But it's also partly what I warned back in March when they said 2 weeks. I said, this can't be 2 weeks. They're not going to stop this, right? Once they lock down. I said back in March, this is going to lead to violence. People are going to lose their jobs. They're going to start going stir crazy. They're going to go into depression. Violence is going to erupt this summer. And, the events that happened this summer just allowed people to release that steam, that madness that's taken over. The longer this goes on, that social unrest is going to get worse. And eventually it's not going to be about George Floyd. It's not going to be about this. It's just going to be about, we just want to overthrow the system. That's the move all these politicians are making. It is a return to the days of the guillotine. It's coming. And I don't want that, but it's coming.
Yeah. It's been a slow boiling pot these past. We're going on what, 7 months now?
Yeah, for a lot of places.
It's very long, 2 weeks.
Yeah, I know. What was that? Well, first it was 15 days to flatten the curve.
Yeah,
and then it was where the mask.
After 15 days, they pushed it to it's going to be a month, and then it just became indefinite.
Yeah, it's like
less than a week ago.
Then it went from flatten the curve to wait till there's a vaccine.
Yeah, eliminate the virus, and eventually eliminate death itself, right? But what has been, especially in Los Angeles, where most of my colleagues in Hollywood are sort of secular, agnostic atheist types, right? And in the industry, they have a very, very deep-seated pathological fear of death, which has been unleashed now, right? Look, I'm a believer in God. Death is going to come, and I believe that's just a transition of consciousness to the next stage. And I think most people of faith share a similar view. So I don't fear death, right? But my friends do. And this has brought this fear out, and this private fear has now become a social fear that they can feel. They have other people that are so terrified of dying, and they can now voice it, and they can structure society around it. But you're not going to stop that. You're just going to ruin your life until, as I've said, and people don't like it when I say it, I was like, so you're going to spend your life miserable, and then the angel of death's going to take you anyway. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know if that's a great life. So.
Yeah, no, not at all. The quality of life for most people these days is woefully inadequate. Yeah, and it's of our undoing. It amazes me when I see people wearing masks while driving their cars.
I saw someone. I live, like I said, by the beach here. Last night, I was up 1 a.m. in the morning. I'm looking out my window. A dude is jogging with a full mask on in the morning on the beach. I'm like, There's nobody here.
Unbelievable. I was when I
you.
It's insane. When I was walking through the airport, I was coming in. I'm so whether I was in Denver or not, but people were walking with that. Not only they had the mask, they've got that clear welder's mask thing going, and then one woman had a garbage bag on.
Yeah.
What?
We're all mentally ill. It's mental illness. Yeah. It is pathologies being unleashed, right? And we have given power to the mentally ill. Yeah. And I'm like, my joke is that, if we were going to give power to the mentally ill, why did we give it to, agoraphobes and hypochondriacs? Why couldn't we give it to nymphomaniacs? We're going to just
right.
Why to give that power?
We're all down for that. Absolutely.
Everything is always done the worst way possible.
And giving them the narrative.
Seriously. Oh my God.
So what you're saying is Mass of the new Passover.
It's interesting. I actually tweeted this out. Somebody put an image of putting a cartoon of someone putting the Passover, putting the
lamb's blood above the door.
And he said this is where we all are right now. We're doing our totems to protect ourselves, and that's all this is. I mean, it's a placebo, in my opinion. It's a placebo and a mind control device. And I'm purchasing these because American, God bless our entrepreneurialism. When these masks came out, this group has been selling these masks that literally say on the mask itself, "This is a placebo." Yeah, right. Control device. So
thanks, commies. It really is. Yeah, I've been called out when a few places, like in the beginning when I was wearing my mask, I wasn't putting it over my nose. I was just having it. I'm like, this is ridiculous, but here you go, enough to satisfy, so I can go in and get my groceries. And I had people, I just ignore them and walk out.
Yeah. Well, I have a special mask that I wear to my grocery store, and everyone recognizes me with it. From the movie V for Vendetta. So I've got that mask. I bought it off of Amazon, and I was like, "Hey, there's that guy!" They all
they know you now, yeah.
They all know me. I'm the guy with the V for Vendetta mask, and more people come up to me and say, "Man, I support your message." They just come up to me because they know it's a political message, right?
Exactly.
In the grocery store and say, "I like your mask. Where can I get one like that?" Nice,
unbelievable. I mean, we've even seen people driving convertibles wearing masks.
Yeah. I mean, it's the sad thing is that let's say tomorrow there is this imaginary vaccine. People aren't going to go back to normal. They'll never, because now this has been unleashed. There will always be another disease. Then people will say, but man, tuberculosis is still out there, man. Yeah. we can't let this take these things off. They're never going to go back to normal until enough of people in society get fed up with this. And I believe it will happen because this is against human nature, and human nature asserts itself. Remember during the Bush era, right after September 11th, for many years, we had the color-coded system, right? Where it was always on orange alert. It never went down from orange alert to like, there was green was at the bottom. It never got there, right?
Everyone was in a constant state of low-level panic.
Right. And it never went to yellow alert. It was always orange the whole time. And then one day, the alert signs just vanished because nobody cared anymore. And they achieved whatever political purpose they wanted to in frightening us for almost a decade. And they just went away. Like after a decade of telling us we're going to be attacked, they just stopped telling us one day because they achieved their purposes.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, the Patriot Act is still there. None of the warning signs are here anymore, but, people don't realize, for instance, when somebody gets kicked off of a platform, or if a platform gets deplatformed by MasterCard or Visa or Discover or whatever, people don't realize that is a function of the Patriot Act, informing banks, you must cut ties with this person. You must take people off who might be engaged in any kind of money laundering or terroristic activity, anything that gets you on the match list. There are no restrictions for overindulging in putting people on the match list. You are encouraged to prosecute.
They still have the no-fly list. I know a U.S. Army veteran, right, who's a Muslim guy who lives in Germany, and he can't fly. He's never been told why. He's like, look, I fought in the army in Iraq against the other guy. Why can't you've got my name on this list? Can you tell me why? What have I done? No, we can't tell you. He has to fly into Canada and drive through to visit his family in Washington State, right? And they let you through that way. I mean, so it's like, what's the point of this list?
Yeah. Well, not only that, but when I was case in point, I'm flying out to visit Rob. TJ and I went out for the Masculine Geek Village by the lake, and I had forgotten, and I had put on in my DOP kit my safety razor, a razor blade.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Didn't think about anything about it.
Yeah.
I fly through Philadelphia, not a problem. All right, I didn't even think about it. Flying back, the little alarm goes off. My luggage gets shunted off to another roller, and they open up. You got anything metal in here? Anything sharp? Nail clippers? I don't know. Take a look. And they pull out the safety razor. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Well, they didn't catch that in Philly. What's the problem? Well, you can't have a razor blade.
This is in your luggage?
Yeah, and well, it was carry-on luggage, but it was all zipped up and inside, buried under clothes. I'm like, I just looked. I'm like, whatever. So, and he's fumbling. I'm like, just give it to me. And I took the razor blade. What do you want me to do with this? Just put it down. All right, there you go. Take it. Have fun with it, you fool. But come up with some standards and do it across the board.
Well, and remember when we couldn't bring this liquid and this kind, the toothpaste had to be this small?
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, and eventually some of those things have actually vanished, like some of those liquid restrictions. Like
they have, yeah.
And they just went away without telling you, right?
Yep.
So it's, I'm very libertarian in my politics. I believe in personal liberty. I believe in liberty in your personal life. I believe liberty in your economic life, right? I think most people are actually that. If they actually think about it, they really are that, right? They want to be left alone. And so this happens every time in bureaucracies. Whenever you put your faith in bureaucracies, they just become this self-feeding monster that doesn't make any sense and dehumanizes everyone.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When I was flying back home from France in 2010, I had forgotten and put a corkscrew in my carry-on. I was on a list for a while. I had this long hair. I had my hoodie up. I looked like somebody ready to cause some trouble. Beard all grown out. So, and they pat me down, ask me questions, put me on this list, go over here, ask me questions, put me on that list. I'm like, I just want to go home. I put a cork. What am I going to do with the cork? Come on.
Yeah. One of my big heroes is the musician Cat Stevens, who's a Muslim, Yusuf, and he got pulled aside at the airport, and he tells a story of how he was on a list and he couldn't, and everyone knew who he was. It's Cat Stevens, right? It's a great musician. Yep. He said everyone was getting his autograph while he was being detained in Hampton. Everyone that came in and interviewed him got his autograph.
And we love you, but we have to put you through this indignity.
He's like, you're on this because you donated to a charity in Jerusalem and whatever, and that was it. And so yeah.
Oh my God.
So
that's crazy. Well, the Patriot.
I miss those days. Days I can deal with those days. This is crazy. Everybody is crazy. I can deal with crazy airport crap.
Yeah.
I mean, getting randomly selected at the airport time and time again is annoying, but I could leave my house.
I mean, everyone hasn't lost their mind. The entire planet hadn't lost its mind.
Yeah,
right?
and it very quickly too. It's just like overnight, just this insane mental illness. Like that was the virus, not the actual virus. The virus is people losing their friggin' minds.
What it is that we have created a religion out of so-called experts. Right? They are the high priests. I mean, this virus thing is a religion. You can't. I mean, like in a conversation with people, I can't present them any data because they're not interested in it. It's like trying to convince somebody that religion is wrong, right? It's like trying to argue about what's in the Bible or the Quran. I mean, if you're not interested in hearing, you're not interested in hearing, right? And so, and the experts are the priests of it, and these are so-called experts. Are like, well, what about this Harvard guy here, who's epidemiologist who opposes Dr. Fauci? He's wrong. I was like, what about the Stanford guy? What about this guy from Oxford? So it's just experts that are just supporting your religion, right? So you don't want information from anyone, whatever. I just yesterday had an argument with somebody on Twitter, a smug person saying, guess you don't want to follow people who know what's going on. I'm like, here's a list of the doctors who are from much more famous institutions than these other doctors who are questioning this. Why don't you go there and read that stuff, right? Maybe it's not about experts. Maybe it's about information and data. And the idea that people could be misguided or paid off as experts is ludicrous to people. But I work in Hollywood and I work with people that are paid off to tell things they don't even believe, right? I've like I said, all these shows about Muslims where they're like, they know what they're doing isn't accurate, but that's their job, right? And they got to promote this, and they're not going to let Kamran Pasha, the expert with a contradictory opinion, into the panel of experts.
I was going to ask you about that. I mean, even before all that, cigarette companies. Yeah, this guy's a doctor. Yeah, Cigarettes don't do anything to you.
For decades. When I was in business school, I studied this infamous case. Back in like the 1920s, someone had developed this a patent for a car engine that would essentially work off of leaves. You know, would develop a kind of gasoline based off of leaves and not off of oil, right? And what did Exxon do? Exxon bought the patent and buried it, right?
Wow.
That machine still exists, but Exxon has the patent and is never going to release that patent, right? Because they don't want that, because that's going to end their industry, right? That's what big corporations do. That's what mega anything does, right? And the fact that people don't understand that is just because it's too hard. So, like, members of my own family oppose me on this because they've been very honest. Like, even if what you're saying is true, how is that going to help me in my job? I'll get fired for repeating the kinds of things you're saying, right? I'm not going to fit into the world that I'm in where your point of view is not the norm. So everyone's just going along with what the norm is because it's easier.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, freedom comes with a cost, and the cost of freedom is work. And a lot of people do not want to work. And if they can be told what to do, and they still have they have a roof over their head, they have enough money to get by, you know, and there you go. And they can play their video games and watch their Netflix. That people are fine.
Well, even in the American Revolution, it was only like 2% of the American populace at the time really supported the revolutionaries. The revolutionaries were people that felt the economic sting of England better than the average farmer did, right? That's what George Washington, Ben Franklin, those guys, they were essentially, you know, upper class, right? And they were feeling the economic structures of colonialism worse than the average person whose life was crap anyway. His life wasn't that great after the revolution either, right? He was still a simple farmer getting through, right? And so most people were just like, man, just go along with the king. Just go along with the king. But it just took a small group of people who said, no, we're not going to go along with the king. And they overthrew it, right? And that's how it worked. No,
it's true. Well, this is where we're at now. The next few months are going to be very, very interesting. How's the weather out there as far as the fires and whatnot? I haven't heard anything about it now. Is that under control?
Well, I mean, all I can say is I can see the sky again for about 2 weeks. You know, it was dark skies, very similar to Beijing, right? And you could tell, you know, you could see that it was coming down here. You know, and then that sparked everyone to go, oh, it's global warming, and that became a Trump thing and all that stuff. I'm like, you know, maybe you should rake the leaves and do some forest management. And and there were some arsonists, and that was there too. So why don't we talk about that?
And that was mainly the problem, the arsonists on top of the mismanaged forest, basically.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is just what we have, and I live in a state that's very highly democratic. I don't know that it will remain that way. I think this lockdown, one of the mistakes they've made is that, you know, a lot of people that were passionate Democrats are burned out, and they're burned out watching the incompetence of how the Democratic politicians are running California, and they're turning against it. So I don't know that California is going to go blue. I think it's going to go a lot bluer than people expect in this election. And that's what happens when you have mismanagement becoming so obvious that even, you know, the thing is, people just can't say it out loud. And that's the benefit of an election, is that, like, when people talk to me, people start arguing about the polls, and I say, I think Trump's going to win in a landslide. I mean, that might change tomorrow. As of today, I still think he's going to win in a landslide. And people are like, that's crazy. Look at the polls. I'm like, yeah, I looked at the polls in 2016. They weren't right either. And you know why?
Yeah.
You want to know why they weren't right? And this was true in 2016. It's more true in 2020. In 2016, people didn't want to admit they're voting for Trump. They didn't want to say it out loud.
Yeah, it was all they're hiding it.
Yeah, and it's even worse in 2020. 4 years ago, guys, people are like, I don't want to admit to this random pollster because I don't know who this dude is. I don't know what's going to do with the information. And so
exactly, it is so bad now. Like on the dating apps, I'm like ladies, voter is not an identity.
And they're not going to vote. The ones who put that on are actually not going to vote.
Exactly. Like, what the? It's unbelievable. And I've had altercations with some of these females. It's like, well, what team are you on? I wrote about that in the newsletter. Like, what team? I'm on Team Vince. I'm not on anybody's team. I don't give a.
You're on Team Truth, right? You're trying
exactly. Team Vince, Team Truth, and that's it. If you're not on my team, then get lost. So that's like I have
exactly what happened with my friend. He's like, you know, I'm not interested in your data questioning the lockdown because it's Team Trump.
Exactly.
Yeah, was there a moment of that's another question about self-awareness? Because some number of people some range of people would say that to you. Say, aren't you worried that you're indirectly supporting Trump? And then would stop for a moment and say, I can't believe I just said that. I'm so sorry.
No. Because they won't. Because my friend said
Your friend didn't do that.
I pointed out to him. We were having an email sort of chat conversation about the lockdown, and he wasn't. And then when he came back to me, emailed me, man, because I emailed all these facts he had no response for, right? And then he said, well, I don't like the fact you're supporting Trump. Then I called him. I said, you and I need to talk, right? Because this is going to affect our friendship. I'm not a Trump supporter. I don't care about Trump. I care about how our lives are being destroyed by, in my opinion, inaccurate data, right? And the fact that you would bring this was very personally insulting to me. So we had a conversation about this, but he never once backed down because in his view, Trump is actually Hitler. And so there, if you are in any way sympathize with Adolf Hitler, I'm like, well, or have a point of view that Adolf Hitler you think also has that point of view, then there's nothing immoral about condemning that person. I said, well, I don't actually think this guy is Hitler. I think that's actually is Holocaust denial to make this guy Hitler, right? Because that's not what he is. He's a nationalist, and I don't approve of all of his policies. Guess what? It won't shock everyone. I'm not a big fan of the Muslim ban. I have a lot of good friends who are Libyan who can't come back to this country, and they're nice people. They ain't no threat to anybody. And the only problem with Libya is we bombed the crap out of that country and made it a hellhole. We did it, right? It was a stable country. We destroyed it, and now you can't come here, right? So I got issues with things Trump has done, but he ain't Hitler. And so don't do that and degrade World War II.
Yeah.
Did you know that Hitler liked dogs?
He's a vegetarian too, and I got all these LA vegans. Oh my God, there may be vegans in this chat. I got no problem with vegetarians, and I got no problem with vegans who keep it to themselves. But please, man, don't preach to me about veganism. I don't want to hear it.
Seriously.
All my Hindu friends are like, hey man, relax and have some milk. Just come on. My Hindu for 5,000 years, have some cheese. It's not
we subsisted just fine on meat, cheese, and milk and whatnot. So we're okay. We know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Eat some meat. Then somebody said, it was in a joke on Twitter. It's like somebody was giving a talk at I guess at a vegan convention or something like that, and asked what the best thing they could do, and the doctor said, eat meat.
I think, again, I wish I had the link for this. I hate quoting data that I don't have the link for because a lot of people make stuff up. But I did read the study that said that looked at who lived the longest, and it said pescatarians, people who just eat fish and vegetable stuff, live the longest, followed by vegetarians, then followed by carnivores. I'm a carnivore. I eat a broad range of stuff, and then the least long-lived people were the vegans. Because they're denying themselves very basic nutrients that even vegetarians are not denying themselves.
Yeah. So, and I was away for a second. What did I miss? I came in on somebody talking about Hitler.
No, we were just talking about that. While I have very strong and open disagreements with the Trump administration on a lot of issues, he's not Hitler.
Yeah.
And to do that, and I was saying that to do that is degrading to the history of World War II. It's degrading to the history of the Holocaust, because that's not what this guy is, right? And somebody in Hollywood said this, and he's not a Trump supporter. So he said, this guy isn't Hitler. This guy's not Mussolini. This guy's basically Berlusconi from Italy, right? He's like that sleazy.
That's not bad,
right? I mean, that's what this guy is, right? So let's just call it what it is, right?
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's all good.
So, what's your main project that you're working on? The thing that you want to get out of the way first, like you're working on daily.
Well, I mean, I've just got to knock on wood and do all my, we Muslims say inshallah, God willing, because we don't want to jinx anything. But the project I'm working on, inshallah, right now is the main of the three major ones that are moving. Is a project has the most momentum, at least as of today. Everything changes, but as of today, it's a project I've sold to a major studio. It's a television pilot set in the Ottoman Empire. It's about the first queen of the Ottoman Empire. It's a true story of this Ukrainian slave girl who was captured in the 15th century and sold to the harem of the Ottoman Sultan. And she basically outsmarted 300 other women, rivals in the harem, who hated her, and end up winning over the heart of the Sultan. And he freed her and actually made her the first queen of the empire. Right? Oh, wow. And then she went and got revenge on everybody that messed with her, right? So it's an incredible true story of this woman's rise and in some ways fall into darkness, right? And so I wrote it's based on a Turkish TV series, A Magnificent Century, that was a huge hit worldwide, just didn't premiere in America. I got the rights to it. I went to Istanbul and convinced the producers of that show to give me the rights to adapt that into an English language version. And I'm working with some very, very high level producers, who have whichever Oscar nominations on it, and we sold it to a studio, and now we're just in the process. We've attached a director. I wish I could announce the director's name, but I actually cannot announce their name until the studio announces it. We've attached a brilliant director to it. It's a woman. She's brilliant. She's one of the best up and coming directors out there, and I'm very excited to work with her. So we're hoping to have this entire package ready to go and put it out there to a Netflix or a Hulu or Showtime or wherever anyone wants to buy it. But I think when people are looking for their next Game of Thrones, and here's a true life story of this incredible epic, adventure of this woman in this medieval world, right? And I think there's a market for that.
Oh, absolutely, especially something based on something that actually happened.
Yeah. Well, the fun thing is this, because the Ottoman Empire was very diverse. Like we talk about, Hollywood is always doing this fake diversity thing, right? So when the show comes out, I'll probably attack because there'll be like a bunch of white people. But so I was like, the Ottoman emperors were, they actually married Eastern European women on purpose. The Ottomans originally were East Asian. I mean, they were the Ottoman Turks were from Asia. They looked more Turkic Asian. If you go to Turkey today, you'll meet Turks who look like they're Korean, right? And you'll meet that are blonde-haired, blue-eyed. But that's the ethnic diversity. And the interesting thing is this: the slaves in the Ottoman Empire were all Eastern European women, the women, the harem, right? So it was like Polish women and Ukrainian women and Hungarian women, right? Yep. And so it'll be like, you have all these characters, and people are like, we're doing a show about Middle Eastern Muslims and all these white people. I was like, yeah, all these people were white people. And I mean, the Ottoman Sultan's mother was Russian, right? His best friend was Italian. Here, the prime minister of Ottoman Turkey, right? Of the Sultan, and he's Italian. So I was like, it's not my. And people are like, where are all the brown people? I'm like, the Ottomans were European. We're doing that. So I was, they'll attack me like, there's no brown people on this show about the Middle East. I'm like,
well, if you follow history, fool, then you'll realize that that's how it went down.
It was a diverse world, and that's kind of real diversity that I like to do, which is exploring, because just seeing an Italian guy as the prime minister of a Muslim sultan is already interesting. It's an interesting dynamic,
especially in today's world, because the person's going to say, "Wait, don't they know that it's this country? Why did they do this?"
Sure.
Yeah.
And then they have an opportunity to hopefully learn.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, the Janissary Corps, which was their special forces, right? Which was the entire Janissary Corps were Eastern Europeans kids who were taken. The Ottomans would conquer Hungary. They would go in and they basically go into the village and say, "Give us your kids." And they would take the kids back, and they would raise the kids as Muslims. I'm sure the Christian parents weren't that happy with it, but they would raise the kids as Muslims, and then so they would then send back soldiers to Hungary that were Hungarian but were now Ottoman. It was a brilliant means of pacifying the population, right?
Yeah.
It was a strategic thing, and that's why that empire lasted 600 years. Is that the entire empire was essentially they Ottomanized Europe. They took Europeans, made them Ottoman Muslims, and then said, "This is your culture now, and now you're going to convince your mom and dad, your uncle and your neighbor to go along with it."
It's conquering from within.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's pretty much. Yeah, it's essentially what's happening now with communism.
Sure.
And it's in here.
I'll take Ottoman Sultan over communism any day, man. That's the worst ideology humanity has ever invented, man.
At the very least, the taxes will be lower. I mean, I'll take it.
Yeah, right.
The fun thing is this. It's an interesting conversation happening on Muslim Twitter, which is an interesting conversation people are having, is that a lot of these sort of the leftist Muslims are supporting Ilhan Omar, right? Someone pointed out, in traditional Islamic law, income tax is haram. It's forbidden. It is forbidden in Islamic law. It's considered theft. Under traditional Islam, there are certain taxes you pay. You pay a charity tax, which is 2.5% of your annual income, right, after expenses. But income tax was considered by Islamic scholars to be immoral and against God's will. It was considered theft. And so whenever the Sultan would impose income tax, the Islamic scholars would foment social revolution against it. So I was like, all you leftists who are supporting Ilhan Omar, you want to read this thing?
Once again, not following and reading history.
Yeah. Well, most of us are disconnected from history. That's why I write historical stories, because there's more to learn from them. And honestly, I don't know how to tell a contemporary story. Everyone is crazy today. How do I write a story of weirdos with masks? How do I do a romance in that, right? I mean, how do I tell a story of all these crazy people on their phones? I mean, I don't know. These aren't normal people. We're not
just think about the Water Boy. Just think about the Water Boy when Adam Sandler would do the and then that's what you do. Okay, everyone that's wearing a mask and running around,
Well,
you
it's
just have them making
Idiocracy,
that
and that's a
noise.
piece of
That's all you
documentary.
got to do.
We've got, I mean, I thought Idiocracy
Yes.
set a couple of hundred years in the future. We're
It's
there.
got electrolytes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
already
beyond
there.
idiocracy, right? We're into insanitocracy. I mean, people are crazy. So I can't write about contemporary. I've got nothing to say about contemporary culture, except where I'm done with it.
Yeah. There's nothing really to learn from it. No, not at all, except how to be a retard.
Well, exactly. Well, you learn from it by saying, I don't want this. But this
Yeah.
is so disconnected from our history. We're relearning everything. People are going to have to relearn why communism doesn't work. I thought that crap was finished in 1989, man.
Nah, it never went away. Nah.
They just reorganized and came back here with all these dumb kids
Right.
who are quoting like Marx to me and the labor theory of value. I'm like, man, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you're
communist country.
you're following an ideology from some dude that never worked a day in his life, and
never worked anywhere. The ideology only has brought suffering. It's never worked anywhere.
Yeah. Well, no, Marx never worked a day in his life and persisted in poverty the entire time because he didn't want to work. Fool.
But we're going to have to learn all of those lessons because our educational system is a mess and people are disconnected from history.
Correct. And unless something changes, unless nothing changes and nothing changes. That's that's what happens.
Yeah, I do think a change is coming, regardless of who wins this election. I think that the resistance to the current situation is going to increase. I think if Biden wins, it'll actually accelerate because people will be like, they're going to be really afraid. In some ways, one would argue that a lot of people think that Trump is on their side. He's like, and then they're a little relaxed about the events. He's going to manage this. I think maybe a wake-up call like a Biden win will make people realize, man, this ain't going away. This is going to get worse. You guys got to decide what kind of civilization you want. You got to act on it.
Yeah. This is definitely a wake-up call, that's for sure.
Certainly there's been a tendency towards like, all right, well, maybe we could get the Velvet divorce instead of the Balkans. Yeah,
I mean, I actually, people talk. I do believe, unfortunately, we're going to have civil unrest next year. Whoever wins, I think whoever wins, radicals on the other side will not accept that outcome, and I think there will be civil unrest. Will it erupt into full-scale civil war? I don't think so. I do, but I think what we're going to have is going to be bad enough, and it's going to. I mean, I think there'll be sleazy politicians that will call for secession and stuff like that, which I don't think is the solution here. But I think regardless of whether we like it or not, I think the United States has a destiny. Maybe I'm talking mystically here, and we're going to have to learn from each other. I don't think we were ever. I think we're all forced together by the cosmos and history, and we're going to have to learn from each other. We can't break up this country. I don't think it's. I mean, I think the whole planet would end if we tried to break this country up. I don't think it would happen.
No, that's for sure. And I know we're coming up on the hour-and-a-half mark.
Yeah. Yes.
Is there anything you wanted to plug or talk about in particular?
Well, I mean, I've talked about my show, and hopefully once I, God willing, get a green light on that show and can announce it, I'd love to come back on, maybe talk more about what we're doing, who we're casting, and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, stay in touch. I think what I'd like to say is I think, especially if you feel that the events that we're witnessing are wrong, which I do, right? The lockdowns, the mask, the social unrest, all this stuff. This is the time for you to have courage. That's the only message I have for everybody. Is that, the world wants to convince us that this is the way it's going to be for the rest of our lives and that that's a good thing. And the only way we can stop that is by standing up individually. Like, that's why I'm not refusing. Look, I will go to my grocery store. I'll wear my V for Vendetta mask because I don't want them to get fined, right? There's a private store. I don't want to hassle them. But I'm not wearing a mask when I go out on the street. I'm not wearing a mask when I go out to the park or the beach. And that's and if anybody wants to fine me, I'll pay the fine, right? But this is my civil disobedience to this system, and we have to stand up for what we believe in, because especially now when everyone's telling us we're crazy when they've lost their minds.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's really the only way you can affect change is by doing it one individual at a time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely agree. And yeah, we'd love to have you back on to talk about your projects and your books and everything else. So,
is there anything from the chat that we've missed? I mean, I know. Is there anything particular question that anybody?
Yeah, I haven't really been paying too much attention. Let's see.
I've got about 10 minutes more, but then I have to take off. But if there's anything.
Let me scroll. Well, let me hit the chat up because the chat's always fun and they're good people. Does anyone have a question for Kamran?
We've been going a mile a minute, which is
Yeah, we haven't been. I've been pretty focused. This has been a great. This has been a great discussion. I haven't really kept up with the chat. Someone say projection.
Yeah. Someone say projection.
Someone say projection. I think he's referring to the psychological.
Sure, the
function.
People projecting their own mental illness onto the rest of us, right?
Yeah.
You know, lack of normalcy is now being presented to us as the norm, and yeah. No, thank you, Marty. I see that. Nothing, just appreciate you. Great show. I mean, look, it's been fascinating to talk about this. You know, and this has been one of the more political conversations I've had. You know, people have had me come on and talk a lot about Star Wars because I've sort of gotten well known, as you see, in that world, speaking out against Star Wars. And
we could do that next. We can do the next time. But here's a serious one. I don't know if you're ready for this. Boxers or briefs?
You know, I'm not a fan of Newt Gingrich, but I'm going to say what he said. And don't take offense at this. That's a very stupid question. So thank you. I don't think anybody needs to know what's going on around my.
No, he's doing that. He was just being facetious. He's doing it on purpose.
I'm
That's a stupid question, Mictobus. Stop that.
God bless you. Thank you for asking. You had the guts to ask it. Thank you.
Absolutely. What are Turkish jails like?
Well, I think we've had movies about that, right? Ain't that fun?
Seriously.
Yeah, they ain't that fun. Well, it's interesting. You know, I'm writing the show about Ottoman Turkey. I've been to Turkey. I've been to Turkey twice. It's a beautiful country. I fell in love with Istanbul. If you guys haven't visited, or at least before Mask World, right? It's one of the most beautiful countries, and you know, it's like the whole country is like a James Bond set because all the women are just ridiculously beautiful, right? I mean, it's left of this Ottoman, like, bring all the Eastern Europeans and mix them in with our people, right? It's a really active population. But you know, I actually got into a little bit of trouble with the government. I was asked by members of the government to write a movie about Rumi, the great Islamic poet, who was very popular in America, actually. And so I wrote this epic film about Rumi. You know, I'm a Sufi, and we didn't talk much about that, but I'm a Sufi, which is an Islamic mystic, and Rumi was an Islamic mystic.
Oh.
And so he, you know, I wrote this beautiful movie that's very important to me personally about his spiritual journey. And then when I handed the script in, the people freaked out because the villain of the piece happened to be the Turkish Sultan who was opposing Rumi in his lifetime. And they're like, oh, we can't, you know, Erdogan, the president, can't make a movie about the government being the villain of the story, right? And I was like, well, that's the thing. Do a story about Jesus and Pontius Pilate is the good guy, right? That's what happened, right?
Yeah.
Hassled, because get what, spiritual figures are usually hassled by politicians. That's what happens, right?
Yeah.
They're always threatened by this guy showing up and turning everything upside down. And so now I'm in a place where I don't think I can visit Turkey for a while because the government's pretty pissed off. It was like, the villain was this guy. It's not my problem.
You're on a list. Well, yeah. So you've got.
I don't want to end up in a Turkish jail. I promise you that.
Well, that would be another interesting story, I'm sure. So you got 5 minutes. Tell us a little bit about you being a Sufi.
Well, Sufis are, you know, because I know many of the people that watch probably don't know a lot about Islam or probably have a negative view of it, which I can understand. But Sufism is an element within Islam. It's the mystical branch of Islam. It's like Kabbalah and Judaism, or, you know, Christianity had various mysticism like Gnosticism. But what it is its approach to religion is mystical, which is that, you know, I do all the 5 daily prayers, the fast, all the things that the rituals of Islam. But what a Sufi does is they look for deeper meaning than just ritual, right? There's a verse in the Quran that says, wherever you look, you see God's face. And the idea is that beneath the veil of this material illusion that we live in, the deity, God is all around us. And the purpose of religion is not actually social order and all those other reasons that it's been used for. It's actually to experience God directly, right? You know, like when Christ says in the Gospel of John, you know, the Father and I are one, right? And the Gospel of John is a very mystical gospel. So that's the kind of thing. So mysticism, Sufism is that thing. And so we will use everything from all the traditional Islamic practices like the prayers to meditations, which we call zikrs, which you remember God, you praise God, to, if you've ever heard of the whirling dervishes of Turkey, that's Rumi, the character I've talked about in the movie. Rumi invented this incredible dance, which is this meditation dance where you spin in place for hours, but you're so deeply focused on God that you'll spin in a circle for hours and stop and you won't be dizzy because your consciousness had left the material world. So you're not even in reality, right? And so these are practices you do to transcend the limits of just the normalcy of being human and to achieve hopefully the highest element of being human. And every religion has that mystical element to it. Buddhism as a religion is probably mystical inherently as a religion. So that's what Sufis are. And if any of you who have like sort of a negative view of Islam, I'm not going to argue about that. I would urge you to read some of Rumi's poems. He is the best-selling poet in America today. This 12th century Islamic poet is the best-selling poet in translation in English in the United States. Wow. And that's why, all of us can fight about religion and politics, but at the end of the day, we're human beings and we want to connect on the heart. And that's what a Sufi tries to do, is that get past the discussion of words and dogmas. Let's just connect and look into each other's eyes and connect as people. And then that's where God can be found.
I can totally appreciate and agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's come through pretty well in this interview. Not to blow smoke, but like,
yeah.
It's very clear that you're practicing.
I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. Personally, look, man, I just moved to Hollywood to meet hot chicks, man. I just wanted to come. I mean,
right?
Any religion can condemn you for that.
Actresses, and it didn't quite play out that way. I got to do the path I'm on. I'm like, well, whatever.
Talk about mystical.
The Sufis do say the beauty of a woman is the beauty of God manifested in her, and I'm going to do that.
Absolutely, we're all down with that. Yep. Cool.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for your time. Thank you for honoring me by allowing me to come on this broadcast.
Absolutely. It's been an honor to have you and a privilege. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
And I hope it was good for your past. And I'd love to come on whenever you're ready.
Absolutely. Sounds good. We'll be in touch.
All right, guys. Take care. God bless.
All right, Kamran.
See you.
Bye.
See you later.
Cool.
Good guy.
That was awesome. I'm
very, very high energy. I like that.
It made our jobs a lot easier. Because,
I can't believe it's been an hour and a half.
I know, right? It went by super fast. So we still have a half hour to entertain the chat and whatnot. So everyone who's watching, I know there's been
hit the like button.
Yeah, Rob, go ahead and do your spiel.
Do the thing. Subscribe. Hit the like button. God damn it.
Yes, and if you here's the thing: if you had signed up for MasculineGeek.life, you would have known some more information about TJ. And even if you didn't do that, if you had signed up for the newsletter, you would have gotten the alert about TJ and some information, and gotten some really good essays from Rob. I just did a small little blurb, although I do some other good essays. So get on the newsletter. Hey guys, sorry I'm playing Among you guys. You're fucking Among Us. Jesus Christ! And Aaron, I'm gonna both Aaron and Rollo decided that they were going to broadcast tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. I have a bone to pick with both of those fuckers.
Especially since it's a really good show. He's doing the my goodness, he's doing the former pastor turned stripper.
Yeah.
With her ex-husband.
Ooh. Well, that might be worth. I know that might be worth checking out. But go back and watch the replay. So, John, TJ is no longer with. Well, he is and he isn't. He is an honorary member now. He stepped down from the main Masculine Geek duties, and as you can see, James, the Golden Voice Streisand, has taken over for TJ. So there you go. And contrary to what TJ says, James is always very brief when he talks. So
that's not always.
Well,
he's blowing smoke up my ass. I have big shoes to fill and even bigger monologues.
Oh, gee, no. That part we don't. That part we don't need you, TJ. If you're out there, we love you.
No, I'm excited. I am reading. I'm finishing up the Stringers right now, and like I cannot wait to see what this guy does next.
I know, right? No, TJ's a very good writer. You should check out his books. Go ahead and read Men Who Walk Alone too. That's
absolutely
that's the first one I read. I got to get to it. I have to buy all of his other stuff. So yes, the meetup was fantastic. The meetup was fun. I had never been out to Salt Lake City. The travel out there was a bit grueling, but I made it out there with no issue. Had a long time combing my heels between flights. Layovers were lengthy, and got into Salt Lake around 3:20. Whereupon TJ and Rob picked me up at the airport. So there you go. And we had a great time. We met a lot of cool people, a lot of old salts, and a lot of new salts out in Salt Lake. And we had some good food. We went to see some good sights. We smoked cigars, traded stories, swapped notes, made business plans. It was a good time. The meetup, Nick. Nick is gonna throw shade because he really feels bad about not being there, so he's going to downplay it to make himself feel better. So he
now we have to bully him into coming.
We have to bully Nick into coming to the next one. TJ will never be forgotten, but we do look forward to the future. Yes. TJ will be dropping the Masculine Geek Life forums. We'll have him on as a guest, and TJ will be continuing the D&D games. So you're not gonna not see TJ. So I know, Nick, you do feel bad. We feel bad that you feel bad, so that's bad, and we don't want to feel bad. So let's stop feeling bad. Let's stop feeling bad for Nick. He'll be okay.
And start looking forward to a future of Italian women not wearing masks.
Exactly. Yes, that will be the next Masculine Geek meetup. We'll be in Italy sometime in mid to late spring. I've already narrowed it down to 3 really prime locations, really good large places in Rome. So we'll see. Have you bought Aaron's course for $4.99? Jesus Christ, John.
I might. I mean, if I tally up the amount I've spent on Spotify and Netflix,
I've taken Aaron's course, and it's quite good. And you are correct. There's a lot of shit that people they don't think of it, but monthly subscriptions add up. So
yeah, I've been running through. It's like I still had a subscription going for this stupid thing that is costing me basically $60 a year, but I have 10 of those. I need to get rid of that. You know,
exactly. It's those little things that add up over time, and when you sit down and actually balance the money flow that's leaving your bank account every month, you're like, what the fuck? So
there are at least 3 decent hookers in this, in this money I've lost this year. That's what Aaron should have sold it as. How to purchase more hookers.
There you go. Hookers and below.
Not minimalism, how to purchase more hookers.
Yeah. No, Mictobus is right. Aaron's course is useful for the youngins. That is true. I mean, I look at it as far as minimalism is 2 things. You're either doing it because you have to, you've made stupid decisions, or it's sort of a choice. It's like I'm choosing to live this way because all this other extraneous stuff at the end of the day doesn't mean anything, and I'm better off saving my money. Yeah. Like with this lockdown bullshit, there was many silver linings, but one of them for me was I like to eat out. I like to cook. I like to have my girls cook for me, and I like to eat out. And I realized when restaurants were closed, all the money I was saving from eating out. So now I've kind of adjusted. I've adjusted that. And I still pretend I'm eating out by putting aside the money and just looking at what I have at the end of the month, going, oh, okay, I can put that over here, or throw that into this investment, or put that over there, or get this raft of books that I'm never going to read before I die. So that's probably one of my only vice is book collecting. So what is this safety doc?
I actually did cancel my Netflix subscription, but mostly for unrelated reasons.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's still, what is the, I mean, I don't have it. So what is the basic monthly cost for that just to stream? I mean, some people do
$14.99.
$14.99.
That's video games. I was watching the same 2 Gundam shows because I got into Gundam recently. I started getting into, long story short, I started getting into hard surface modeling and trying to figure out how to design mechs for video games and stuff like that. And I started watching those, and I'm like, this is not worth $14.99. This is video games or beer or a date at this point for 2 shows.
Yeah.
But you forget about it. And if you don't, here's the thing, if you don't act on that, like, oh, I'm wasting money. If you don't act on it right that second, you will forget about it at the very least until past whatever your next charge date is. Or at least that's how I am. Gotcha. You guys have probably grown out of this by now. I still have the attention span of a newborn baby giraffe. And you know,
That's pretty funny. So now, does Netflix still do that? The CDs and stuff, where they send like you pick a CD or two and they send it. Like, is that still a thing, or is it just specifically streaming?
I think it's specifically streaming. I think Redbox still does. Is it Redbox? That they used to have like the vending machines and stuff like that. Was that?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. I forgot about those. I've never used that service.
I think I did it a couple of times. There's a Masculine Geek meetup, Moosehead Lake in Maine. I gotta take you guys out there sometime.
We can head out there.
So beautiful. But yeah, I remember basically all the tourist destinations used to have them, and we used them a couple of times while we were up there.
Okay. Oh, here we go.
Netflix
still has 3 DVDs at a time. All right. Yeah, if it works, I'll buy a DVD here and there. I usually stream shit from Amazon. Yeah. So how'd your cats deal with us not being there anymore? Was it just throw them off because we were there? There's all this energy, and then we left.
Yeah, they were a little discombobulated. So that's kind of what was going on with them.
Yeah, I came back and Mowgli gave me the cold shoulder. He's like, "How dare you? How dare you leave and have strange people come into my house?" Like, all right, whatever. He ate his dinner and hid behind the couch the whole night. I'm like, what the fuck? All right, you little bastard.
Maybe fix the microphone.
Fix your microphone. God damn it.
Exactly. I need to go down.
Yeah, we'll be setting up a Masculine Geek meetup in Gettysburg by the end of October, beginning of November. So you're more than welcome to join that, James.
Absolutely.
And you, Carl, as well. I think he left. He had to go to work or something. But I'll let him know. That's it. We got nothing. After all the energy from Kamran, we're kind of like ready for naps.
Absolutely, dude. It was. I got to talk to that guy again.
I know, right? It's very invigorating.
It's hearing about it's so weird being on the other side of like it, America's basically 50 different countries. And we're on the opposite ass ends of America, but like there are these same endemic problems in the kind of social order that you and I have to experience. And Rob, you mentioned that things were a little different on your end, but still there's this pervasive feeling of, well, I can't speak out about how I agree with you. In fact, I have to publicly condemn you for the thing that you're saying that I agree with.
Yeah, it's definitely fucking backwards. That's for sure. And to think that you can't speak your own truth, or any truth for that matter, or people are going to ostracize you or physically become violent with you. It's just completely insane.
I don't think I've been to Gettysburg.
What?
Now that I think about it, I don't think I've actually been to Gettysburg.
Oh, you'll love it then. It's a college town. It's got everything you need in one small little area. You can walk everywhere. One of the houses that I rent is basically up the street from Cemetery Hill. So it's pretty cool. Wine and breweries nearby. Cool places to eat. Bookshops. There's a comic book store. There's a great cigar shop. Yep. More butthurt. Dude in the upper right corner, you have a professional voice. Do you do voiceovers? Well, there you go, Meaty Hits. We've been pushing James in that direction for the past couple months, and he's doing some voice work for Masculine Geek. He's done some voice work for a few other people, I do believe, and he is getting his voice career up and running. So yes, hence the nickname Golden Voice.
Indeed, and Mr. Media Hits, and indeed anybody else in the chat who hasn't done so as of yet. I think it's okay to announce that.
Please do, yes.
Okay, I will be narrating Masculine Geek essays. So, if you want more of my golden voice, which you can usually only catch when I'm streaming or appearing here,
you have to go to
you'll be able to catch all of your favorite essays by these two fine gentlemen, and TJ, and one person whose name I am forgetting at this moment. And man, this makes for a bad pitch, I guess.
No,
but
keep going.
You need to get on masculinegeek.life in order to access these. And the essays alone, as far as I'm concerned, are worth it. But if you don't have time to read them, or if you prefer to listen to something rather than the silence of your car idling as you drive off to work, then I think it's a fine investment, you know?
Absolutely. And let's be fair. You could read anything and it doesn't matter. You could read the back of a cereal box, and I see Mictobus is coming in his pants already. I see what you're doing. You're doing to this man.
I believe that the answer to the question was briefs.
Yeah.
This was settled.
Yes. Oh God, that's pretty funny. But yeah, well, Mictobus, he'll get to hear the essays. He's a Masculine Geek Life subscriber. He's a full member, and he got in on the ground floor, so you got the special deal. The rest of you fuckers have to get the increased price, which is only, well, you go over to masculinegeek.life and take a look at it. You can also join the Speakeasy, which is just a forum. That's a private forum for chat. That's a small price to pay. I may be adding another level for certain essays. We may be doing that. We'll see. We have to, when's the next Fortress chat? Well, I just sent out an email via the membership functionality. So, Bacon, check your email, check your spam. So, I'm trying to set something up for October 10th, BDSM webinar live demonstration. So, Red Crusaders over here. You haven't been on what in a hot minute? You trying to weasel your way onto the show? We're almost ready to head out. You should have hit us up sooner. Well, actually, you couldn't because we had a guest on. So, and I don't know when we're going to have one of the freeform. So, you know, obviously we have it now, but we have another guest on next week, and then we have the D&D game again. So probably the end of October. We'll see. Red, it's really whenever, well, when it's not going to be a guest on masculinegeek.life Fortress, the Zoom meeting, private Zoom meetings. Those are usually the beginning of the month. I try to. So the increased price still isn't too bad for what you guys are. No, that's true. I mean, and there's going to be more content. We did a private masculinegeek.life podcast for everyone at the Masculine Geek Village by the Lake with Chest Rockwell, TJ, Rob, and myself. That was almost an hour and a half of pure brilliant content, and you get to hear how the Butthurt Hefeweizen was made and the history behind that. And you missed out on that shit. Yeah, no worries, Mictobus. It's there when you need it. I'm going to be posting some more stuff this weekend, and some photos and whatnot. I have a few more essays to post up, and I've been throwing up some of the old Patreon archival content as well. So, Halloween party show. That might be kind of cool. Maybe we'll have do a Halloween. If we could do a Halloween party show wherein we invite random chat guests and they get put into a drawing for the best ridiculous fucking costume they can come up with. Who knows?
Rob, can you dress as Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
he is already.
Right.
Can you? Right. I just think that would be.
Jesus Christ.
I can't finish it.
Yeah, that's what she said. We'll do. I think what we'll do again. I think this year, towards the tag end of the year, we'll do a Masculine Geek, like New Year's Eve show again. Oh well, this is interesting because Bacon. All right, so let's tell this story. At the meetup, where were we at? An Outback, Rob? You got the Outback Steakhouse we're at?
Yeah.
Is that I'm just setting the tone. That's where we that was the restaurant we were at, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And Bacon shows up with his special mask.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, special mask and the Imperial March from Star Wars. Complete in his getup. So that was his late September, early October Halloween mask for us. Yes.
Yes, it was.
Mm-hmm. Rob is still fuming. It was a good time, though.
Yes, it was.
No, you'll definitely enjoy meeting Bacon. He's a good man.
And put it on the priorities list. I mean, I've already flapped my gums enough about the value of meeting folks in person, but especially these guys here, like I don't know, they're going to a football game. There's nothing. There's no good substitute for meeting up with you guys.
Absolutely. And you and Carl, we're a couple towns over, so there's no reason for us to get together, and I'm going to make that happen. So,
indeed, we are going to
that's
the
right. Yep.
Very soon, and we are getting a bucket of wings, at the very least one.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I read an article somewhere that was open. I forget what.
Yeah, I think I texted you about a few. This is what happened. It was like the day after it opened. I invited all my buddies out, all my buddies from high school, and we're all getting ready to go out to the pick. And then Google says, "We forgot to mention there's a flash flood coming, so you're gonna have to go somewhere else."
Oh Christ! Damn floods.
You thought the lockdown. You thought just when you thought lockdown was easy, the weather.
The weather's gonna fuck you over. What the fuck? I'll look at that later. So yes, meet up often, and whenever time allows, but as often as you can. You can't beat it. We had good discussions, good food, good wine, good butthurt Hefeweizen, good cigars.
Nick missed out on a good time.
Yes, he did. God damn it, Nick. Yeah, we're gonna have more domestic Masculine Geek meetups more frequently, both on the East, Mid, and West Coast. So stay tuned. If you're on the newsletter, you'll get advance notice. He did make amazing mac and cheese. I will say he put too much mustard in, and I'm not a huge mustard fan, but I ate it anyway. It was still good. But yes,
goddamn right, you're gonna fucking eat it.
Otherwise, fucking eat it, bitch.
It'd be just me and James on the show. What happened to Vince? I don't know. He got on a plane, and I never saw him again.
He's gone.
They put him on the no-fly list.
Yes,
mid-flight.
No mac and cheese list. Rob cooks a good steak. He really cooks a good breakfast. Just saying. Rob cooked us breakfast. He didn't wear the apron, though. He didn't do that. He didn't wear the apron. Well, you would know that if you watched the Masculine Geek breakfast broadcast. We did have that. Go over to Periscope. And it's on Twitter. So it's one of our most... Well, that and the first one, the first drive out where you were talking and talking history about the electrical plant and the copper mine.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And
Vin too.
that's right. And of course, Joe was there. Joe was a trooper. He was pretty much babysitting without getting paid. And
Yeah. Keeping an eye on the mobile frat party.
that's right. Joe's a good man. He's a good, solid man. And you would meet him and interact with him if you were on masculinegeek.life. Yes, we're plugging our shit. We hardly ever plug our shit. You know, I'm tired of plugging our shit. It didn't sound right. Plugging our shit. Anyway, you got the idea. Was Joe security? He was security for the mobile frat party. Yes. Babysit bacon. Yeah, there's some money due for Joe. That's for sure. That's for sure. That's too funny. All right, so gentlemen, I'm going to call it. I'm tired, and it's almost a 2-hour mark. So we are going. Yes, there you go. Amos was a good assist. He didn't stop in today. We missed him in the chat.
Well, I think it's his birthday or something too.
Oh, that's right. It is. Yeah, I wished him a happy birthday too earlier.
No, Vince.
On Twitter.
Sing.
What? No, I'm not singing. You should sing. You should sing.
No, I'm not saying. I couldn't possibly.
You had the voice for it.
No. Listen, on the last happy birthday, my voice cracks harder than
Than a 12-year-old kid going through puberty, or what?
Yeah. Or worse. Or worse.
Oh, that's not good. Well, Amos, happy birthday to you. There you go. All right, so let's do a little housekeeping as we wind down the broadcast. James, where can everyone find you?
So you can find me at Asher Creativity, just about everywhere, but especially on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And you will see James Noe Streisand on Twitter. And tomorrow evening, I am going to be streaming. I don't know if any of you guys like video games. If you happen to like video games, I'm going to be streaming No Man's Sky. And because on Twitch, because I got back into streaming and I narrate everything that happens. So if you need a little more golden voice in your ears, you can get that.
There you go. And also, that's right. Cracks like Cappy's girlfriend's whip. And you can get more of James' golden voice on masculinegeek.life.
Masculinegeek.life.
That's right. Rob, where can everyone find you?
Rob says .net.
And masculinegeek.life.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so Rob's there as well. And you can find me, masculinegeek.life, masculinegeek.com for the moment. And obviously here. So there you go. All right, without further ado, we're going to call it an evening. Everyone, enjoy the rest of what's left of it. And we shall see you all next time. And in the meantime, keep the fires burning, keep the lead slinging downstream, and don't take any wood nickels.